Hi guys, it's Blackie. Okay, in my recent video on Practice What You Preach, I had a little bit of a struggle trying to light birch bark for a quick fire. Okay, test time. What did Blackie do wrong? Now, if you want to pause the video a minute and think on it, go ahead. Okay. Where I was missing was this. This birch bark, perfectly adequate birch bark, but it's not very thick. And so when I was trying to shave it to make dust, I really couldn't make much shavings, and I couldn't hardly get down there on my knees, so time was hurting me. I couldn't get into a good position to use my ferro rod. And I'm kind of out here like this trying to do it because my knees just didn't want to bend all the way back down. And I want to thank everybody that sent me ideas and ways to kind of get around the knee problem. The knee is just a temporary thing. I've got swelling in my joints right now because I'm old and I'm arthritic. And like a lot of you, I go through times where I just don't want to bend. Now, a week from now, I'll be able to do calisthenics and do backflips. But right now, that knee's swole up or this shoulder's bothering me or whatever. Just what you get from a lifetime of adventures, you get a lot of trophies. Boy, I like to say if it was dumb and stupid and the girls thought it was cool, I had to try it once. And so I've got quite a few bummed up areas. But back to where I was missing and what we need to talk about is I'm using a spark ignition. Okay, this is not raw flame, this is a spark. And if you're using a spark, you need a bird's nest to catch that spark. Now, yet true, I have demonstrated where I've taken a hunk of fat wood and shave it down really fine until I made fat wood dust, Maya dust, and hit it with a ferro rod and it ignited. But this birch bark is a little too thin, a little too dry, and etc. for me to shave it down that fine to easily catch the spark. Okay? So I need to combine it with another tinder to create a bird's nest. A bird's nest is what we use to catch the spark. Okay? And from there, ignite. It is the stepping stool that goes from spark to tinder, bird's nest. If I'm using raw flame, I can use a tinder bundle. That's just a bunch of leaves and small sticks. Something that a flame will easily catch and go. This birch bark would be great in a tinder bundle because when I hit it with raw flame, poof, it's going. It's hot, it's instant because of the birch oil within it. Kind of like the stuff that's in my fat lighter down here naturally that will combust like it's got gasoline or petroleum because it is such a flammable liquid. But this bark is a little too dry for that. So let's talk about a bird's nest for just a second. Now, to practice making a bird's nest, here is a hunk of jute. We're going to make a bird's nest out of this in just a minute. But what I have paired with this birch bark is something I can get everywhere down here right now, and that is raw cotton. This is the cotton right out of the field. Down here in my south, we grow a lot of cotton. And I'd say 5 or 6 miles from where I live is a cotton gin. And for those of you not familiar with this technique, the fields down here will be white. It looks like a blizzard. We call it the southern blizzard when all the cotton is ready to pick and machines come through and pick and they generate these big, huge rolls of cotton. A big truck comes up and picks this up where it picks up the rolls and puts it inside the truck. Pretty interesting technique to watch. And then they go from there to the cotton gin. The cotton gin will then take this stuff, run it through a process where they separate the white fluffy fibers from the cotton seed, the sticks, the grass, and everything else. And that goes in one way, and now the other side comes that. But because of this effect of them loading it up on trucks and driving it down the road, little bitty pieces of cotton blow off in big bales. And so for miles, like 8 or 10 miles leading to that cotton gin on both sides of the road, it looks like snow. where it's all this cotton laying everywhere that's blowed off the trucks going to the cotton gin. So I just stopped and picked me up a couple of big handfuls. This is a good resource for me to just pick up. It's free and it's raw cotton, which makes a good tinder and a really good bird's nest. Now, we'll get to that in a minute. I want you to practice making a bird's nest. Get you some jute. Jute is macrame cord or etc., and you will find it in the craft section at your local craft store, big box store. Often will have some in rolls and hardware and etc. It comes in slightly different thicknesses. Now, a lot of times you see this for tying up packages as well. So sometimes you'll find some in the stationery section for tying up packages. So just saying. Now let me show you. Wow. Here it is. It's a fairly small diameter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece, I'll say about 3 foot long, something like that. I'm going to rewrap the bale up like that. Put a double pass through so it cinches up good. Like that. Pull it up tight. Now I'm going to cut that off. I'm still playing with the swamp romper. Now, what I want to do is reduce this down to fibers. Okay. Now this would be the same if I found something out here in nature, grasses, vines, whatever. I want to pull it apart and fray it up to make it more and more hair-like. The greater the surface area, the greater chance of it catching that spark. Okay? Now, once you're trying to do long pieces like this, you notice it wants to kink up on you. You may want to kind of cut them a little bit shorter initially. I'm just going to unweave this, just like that. And then again, starting in the middle, pull it apart. Just like that. Kinks up, don't worry about it, just pull. And I'm going to keep separating out these fibers, which get more and more hair-like as I go. Just start pulling it apart with your fingers, like this. Didn't say it's fast, I just said it's very effective. Quick pull and everything. Put that in the middle, grab again, separate, and pull apart. Now I said in a recent video about going and getting some jute to practice knots. It's biodegradable. It's a good tinder source, as well as, suppose I want to tie something up and leave it and it not be there forever, ever. For example, let's say I've got a bird feeder like idea, like a pine cone with peanut butter and bird seed in it we used to make up when I was a kid. And I want to go down here and tie it to this tree so that the wildlife can feed on it, but at the same time, I don't want to leave something like bank line or paracord or something that the tree would possibly damage the tree because it would have to grow around it. It won't rot. Well, this stuff will rot in a few weeks. And so by the time that pine cone's done, this will be rotted and it'll fall right off the tree. So it is one way of leaving a, we will say, ethically biodegradable cordage, if you want to use that, depending on what you're doing. Cotton cord can do much the same thing. In fact, down here where I'm at, if you're going to use a fish basket in the river, you have to use cotton. You can use nylon cord for a lot of it, but where it actually attaches to the bank, there's got to be a loop of cotton cord, so that down the line, if we get a flood or whatever and you forget about your basket, the cord can break or rot and let go of that basket and let the river carry it out, and you don't end up with something that becomes a beginning of a log jam or etc. So that's the reason. Now I have took that, frayed it apart, and made this. Now, your first instinct is always going to be, I want to just mash it flat again. No, start doing this, pulling it apart, roll it over, pull it apart. I'm tearing fibers as I'm doing that. And that makes fuzzy ends, which is what I want. Alright, now just roll it down where it's about half that size. Something about like that. Okay? Now, I'm going to open up in the middle of it, make a place for my thumb to go into, i.e. like a little bitty bird's nest. I'm going to set it right there. I'm going to take my ferro rod, I'm going to strike sparks into that area. First I'm going to bear down on the knife, the edge, to get it to bite into my ferro rod. And I'm going to do one to clear any oxidation or whatever off the top of my ferro rod. Now I'm going to aim it. Poof. Caught it and ran with it, didn't it? Now that's several seconds, 10-20 seconds, from that little bitty piece of good usable flame before it drops down to where it's just a coal. That would mean if I had like a pile of leaves or whatever in a tinder bundle there, this would catch and spread over to it. Or that birch bark would now easily catch with that and keep going. Very simple. Now, make sure that's fully out. Let's look at that raw cotton. I take a piece of raw cotton and a piece of that birch. Now, the cotton is going to serve as a flash tinder. That means it catches a spark easily and quickly, burns fast, burns hot, but doesn't burn very long. So I'm going to take this and I'm just going to start tearing it apart. I mean, this has still got the seeds in it. In fact, there's a seed right there. That is a cotton seed. Plant your own crop. Just going to tear it apart, get air in it. Get all them fibers out. Okay. Blackie, it's dirty, it's got grass in it. Gotta burn. Now, this birch bark burns hot, but all it needs is ignition. So I'm going to just stick that just right there. So when this catches, it's going to immediately flow into that. And let's see if I can get some results this time. One hit. Boom. See how the cotton ball immediately flashed and burned, and then will now ignite the cedar bark, or the birch bark, excuse me, which is now producing plenty of heat and flame. And that birch bark, because it's got so much oil in it, it's going to burn like a wick. And it's going to give me flame and easily ignite something like small twigs, something like that. So if this was in the middle of a shape like that, of a tinder bundle of tiny sticks, leaves, stuff like that, on a handle that I scoop around like a yoke, and it's in the middle of it, I ignite this, and I can turn it to put that fire up to the core. I've got a big thing I can then stick underneath the fire and ignite. So the whole thing is about the transition between from spark to bird's nest to tinder. That's the step you got to go through. If you skip the step, like I did, it won't guarantee it's going to make the jump. I'll put that over here. Put that out. So, what did Blackie do wrong? He didn't do proper preparation, because I didn't make up a bird's nest to catch the spark. I tried to just get that birch bark to do it. Now, I have had birch bark in the past. It was a good deal thicker than this, that I was able to shave up, make a pile of shavings, hit it with a ferro rod, it ignited, boom, and went great. But nothing, all things are not created equal. So Is this bad tinder? No, it's not. I just need to recognize what's needed. So I can now go gather all of this I want, this raw cotton. I take this bag of cedar, and I keep calling it cedar, but birch. And I go tear it up into pieces, and I mix it with the free cotton, and I fill this bag up with it. Then I've got a bag of tinder to pull out to put into my bushcraft kit, carry my haversack, etc., in something watertight. The jute that I carry on my little roll, in the top of my haversack, I carry a donut of jute because I've got disposable, biodegradable cordage. I've also got a tinder source, run off about 3 feet, fray it up right quick, bingo, I've got a bird's nest. See, preparation is the key to guarantee success. You saw me struggle. Why did I struggle? I didn't do the preparation. And that's why. I guessed I could do it. But because of knees and everything else, I didn't do it. Now did I? But now I still didn't fail because what did I do? I adapted. I reached in my haversack and I got a small flask that had denatured alcohol in it for use on a Frangia stove. I put literally like 3 or 4 drops, that was it. Hit it, poof. Now the alcohol acted as a tinder, a bird's nest, to transition to that. You just needed the step. I didn't want to fray this up. I was already hurting, I was already down there, and I didn't want to get up and start over. You know what I mean? And so I adapted on the fly. I've got the resources in that haversack to adapt on the fly. But, and I'm dead serious, guys, thank you for those of you that were keeping me honest. Because I fessed up and told you right off, you know, I cheated, I did this. There's a lot of you that said, I noticed that, and I was going to say something. You keep me honest, and I keep you guys honest. And I appreciate that. I really, really do. Whenever I make a mistake, point it out. Blackie, did you mean to do that? And I thank you when you do. Because sometimes it was a mistake. Sometimes it ain't. Sometimes I'm trying to do something for a teaching or a learning skill. Sometimes I just was being lazy and I was in a hurry and didn't have time. You know, I'm human just like you. But this knife with a decent fire rod. Oh, got a loop of bank line I hang this up with. Now I went and put me a paracord loop on the back of it so I can stick my pinky in it and be able to grip it. I can put 2 fingers through that if I have to, like this, and be able to grip the knife, and I can't drop the knife that way. Why would you want to do that? Over water. When you're canoeing or something like that where I'm about to do this, and if I slip, it's gone. I will put my finger into a loop or something like that to do that. Plus the fact we talked about chopping. I can put a finger through that, grip the end of the knife, and give me maximum power for a chop. But at the same time, the knife cannot come out of my hand. I can't sling it out of my hand. I can do that, and that's it. You know, it can't go out of my hand because of that cord. Especially if I twist it once or twice, shorten it up. It can't go out of my hand because of that cord, even though I'm only gripping it with 2 fingers. That gives me maximum chopping capability when I do want to chop something small. Little trick. Well guys, that concludes this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have, please hit that like button before you go. Practicing what we preach is something we've got to do. Keep the skills honed up because they will dull over time. So, what is Blackie doing to hone it up after that little episode where I didn't get a fire going? 1, I evaluated. What did I do wrong? Why did I fail? First attempt in learning. 2, you didn't make up bird's nest, did you, you dingleberry? Nope. I sure didn't. I was lazy. So what has Blackie been doing? Every day since then, Blackie has been cooking his lunch out in the fire pit, and I've been making a fire with this knife, a ferro rod, and making up a tinder bundle or something to do it with. I'm going to practice that skill a little bit, hone it back up, because you know what? I need to practice just like you do. Till next time, guys, I'm Blackie, wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.